What's going on, guys? Ness here. What I have in front of me today is a yard sale Dreamcast that I was able to pick up for $11. Yes, I was able to talk them into giving me 2 VMUs for an extra buck, which is why it was 11 bucks. This Dreamcast is a bit dirty and dusty, and I also found out that the disk drive is no longer working. So what I'm going to do with this Sega Dreamcast is show it some love, clean it up, and I'm also going to install a GDEMU. I figured I would just do that instead of replacing the disk drive and just run all of my games off of an SD card. Now, cosmetically, besides it being really dirty, this Dreamcast actually isn't in that bad a shape. You can see the console starting to experience a little bit of yellowing, but I've seen consoles in way worse condition. I'm gonna take it apart. I'm actually gonna go about restoring its original white coloring. While cleaning up the console, I noticed that some areas had some sticky residue on them, from what I assume were stickers or something of that nature. So with some rubbing alcohol and some elbow grease, I was able to get all of those little sticky spots off. As a matter of fact, to clean off the entire console, that's pretty much what I used, a combination of tap water and rubbing alcohol. So here's the Dreamcast all cleaned up. And I have to say, the console actually is in pretty good condition, besides the whole it not working thing. But we're going to address that. I don't know if how many of you are aware of this, but one thing that is outstanding at bringing consoles back from the whole yellowing effect is hydrogen peroxide. Now, you can't just pour peroxide on the console because it's going to drip off. And if you had a container where you can actually let the casing soak in hydrogen peroxide, that might work. But your best bet is to just buy some of this cream peroxide that's used in hair salons and apply it religiously onto the console and allow it to sit in the sun for a while, which is what I'm going to do right now. The Sega Dreamcast is one of the more easier consoles to disassemble. You pretty much take out the screws in the back, pop open the casing.
Meanwhile, across town, in this less than fashionable cubbyhole of the San Francisco Examiner, these editors are programming today's copy of the paper into that same...
The components of the Dreamcast are pretty much in layers, so just keep unscrewing and keep disassembling, and you'll eventually reach the motherboard and the bottom plating. Now that I've reached the bottom, I'm going to put all my components to the side for safekeeping. First thing I'm going to do is grab a dry brush and just kind of brush away whatever dust is present on the interior of the casing. And I'm going to lay down some newspaper and put on some gloves, because you really don't want this stuff splashing around everywhere. I'm going to pour a healthy amount of this cream peroxide into a glass bowl, and then using a paintbrush, I'm just going to slowly and thoroughly apply it to my Dreamcast housing. Once you're satisfied with the amount of peroxide cream you have on your Dreamcast, grab 2 sealable freezer bags and place the top of the housing and the bottom of the housing in each bag. And now comes the waiting game. We're just going to let these two sit in the sun for a while. Depending on how yellow your console is how long you want to let it sit. Because this console wasn't that yellow, I let it sit for about a day and a half. But if you have a game console that's experiencing a ton of yellowing, you might want to let it sit for 3 days or maybe even longer. Once that's done, as you can see, this Dreamcast is shiny white once again. Because I opted not to whiten the controller, this will give you a good indication of a before and after. You can see the difference in how white the console is versus the slight yellowing that's beginning to take over the controller. I'll probably whiten up the controller in a later date. Now what I'm going to do is the exact process I did to take apart the Dreamcast, only doing it in reverse, putting everything back together. It's a pretty simple process, and it shouldn't take too long at all. Now I'm at the point where it's time to reinstall the disk drive, but because I'm not doing that, I'm going to go ahead and grab my GDEMU. The GDEMU is super easy to install. It just kind of snaps in place, and it comes with these little plastic legs to keep it in position. I'm going to go ahead and pop that in. And there we have it. Now we have a fully restored and modified Sega Dreamcast. I put in a 32GB SD card and pretty much loaded it with all of my favorite Sega Dreamcast titles. I believe you could put up to a 64 gig in here, but I didn't feel it was necessary. The games run every bit as good as their disc counterparts, and you might actually get some faster loading times out of it. So there you have it, guys. Another Sega Dreamcast brought back from the dead and geared up with some pretty nifty mods. Eventually what I want to do with this Dreamcast is install HDMI output so I can enjoy these games in HD. The Dreamcast is one of my favorite consoles of all time, and in my opinion is one of the most underrated consoles of all time as well. I'm glad to see that there's still a community out there that support this awesome console and are making kick-ass mods for it, such as the GDEMU. I'll put a link to pretty much everything I used in this video in the description below, in case you guys are looking forward to tackling a project similar to this on your own. Hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, this is Ness, signing out.